Have you ever noticed that some animated movies seem to hide little secrets right in front of our eyes? While we're following the main characters and focusing on the story, familiar faces can quietly appear in the background, objects can reference other movies, and even combinations of letters and numbers can have curious stories behind them. Today, we're going to uncover 7 hidden secrets in famous animated movies. Some of them probably went completely unnoticed even if you've watched these movies several times. But before we begin, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. And while you're at it, leave a like. It really helps support the channel. Now, let's get into the list. Number 7. Guest characters from other animations. Some animated studios have a habit of hiding familiar faces in places where they have absolutely no business being. In Aladdin, there's a brief visual reference to the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. Blink and you'll miss it completely. But the Hunchback of Notre Dame takes this tradition to another level entirely. In a single street scene, 3 separate characters from 3 completely different films appear within seconds of each other. Aladdin's magic carpet drifts through the background. Belle from Beauty and the Beast walks casually through the crowd. And Pumba from The Lion King makes a brief appearance being carried through the street. 3 films, 3 characters, 1 shot. Hercules joins the list with a darker version of the same joke. In one scene, Hercules wears a lion skin that looks remarkably like Scar, the villain from The Lion King. Whether that was intentional or an animator's inside joke has never been officially confirmed. Lilo and Stitch hides Dumbo inside a painting on a wall. Frozen places Rapunzel and Flynn Rider from Tangled in the crowd during Elsa's coronation. In all of these films, the main story is happening in the center of the frame. The hidden guests are always somewhere else, waiting for the one viewer paying attention to the background.
Number 6. The Hidden Mickey. Mickey Mouse doesn't always need to appear as a character to make his presence felt. There's a long-standing tradition in Disney productions called the Hidden Mickey, and once you know it exists, you start seeing it everywhere. The concept is simple. The classic silhouette formed by Mickey's round head and 2 circular ears gets embedded somewhere in the scenery, objects, or composition of a scene. Sometimes it's obvious. More often, it blends so naturally into the environment that it looks like pure coincidence. In Cinderella, soap bubbles arrange themselves into the unmistakable 3-circle formation. In The Lion King, rocks near a waterfall form the same shape when viewed from the right angle. In The Little Mermaid, during a scene in King Triton's underwater kingdom, a figure that strongly resembles Mickey can be spotted moving through the crowd in the background. The tradition didn't stay confined to animation either. Hidden Mickeys have been found in live-action Disney productions, in theme park designs, and in places that required someone to look very carefully at something that most people walk past without a second glance. Once you start looking for 3 circles, you'll find them in places you never expected.
Number 5. The A113 Mystery. A113 appears in Toy Story, it appears in Finding Nemo, it appears in The Incredibles, Brave, Up, Cars, Ratatouille, and dozens of other productions. It shows up on license plates, room numbers, doors, camera labels, and train cars. To someone who doesn't know the story, it looks like a recurring Easter egg with no explanation. The real story behind it is more interesting than any conspiracy theory. A113 is a reference to a classroom at the California Institute of the Arts, CalArts, where many of the animators who would go on to define modern animation studied their craft. The room was used by students in the character animation program, and over time it became something those students carried with them into their careers as a quiet tribute to where everything started. When those animators went to work at Pixar, Disney, and other studios, they kept hiding A113 in their films. It became an inside signature, invisible to most audiences, immediately recognizable to anyone who knew what to look for. It's been appearing in animated films for decades, and in most cases the only way to spot it is to pause the frame at exactly the right moment.
Number 4. References inside references. Some of the most interesting hidden details in animated films aren't individual Easter eggs, they're connections between films that form an entire network of references pointing in every direction at once. Finding Dory places a girl in the aquarium crowd whose appearance closely resembles Riley from Inside Out. Inside Out then contains a dinosaur statue that looks like Forrest Woodbush from The Good Dinosaur. Arlo, the protagonist of The Good Dinosaur, appears as a toy in another Pixar production. And in Brave, a small carved figure of Sully from Monsters, Inc. can be found hidden in a scene. Toy Story 3 takes this further than almost any other film. Scattered among the toys in various scenes, viewers have spotted a version of Lightning McQueen from Cars.
The implication that all of these stories exist in some version of the same world has never been officially confirmed by Pixar, but the connections keep appearing in film after film, suggesting that someone at the studio has been building something deliberately for a very long time.
Number 3. A frozen villain in Big Hero 6. Big Hero 6 is set in a futuristic city with no obvious connection to Frozen. Different studio, different story, completely different visual world, which makes what happens in 2 separate scenes genuinely unexpected. The first appearance is Olaf. During a city sequence, a figure that clearly resembles the snowman from Frozen can be spotted briefly in the background, easy to miss if you're following the main action. The second appearance is more deliberate and more entertaining. Inside a police station, there's a wanted poster on the wall. The face on that poster is Hans, the villain from Frozen. The same Hans who deceived an entire kingdom gets his own wanted poster in a completely unrelated film. Given everything he did, the placement feels almost like justice. But the reference doesn't stop there. Later in the film, Baymax, the inflatable robot protagonist, collides with a statue during a test sequence. The statue bears a strong resemblance to Hans. He manages to appear twice in a film that has nothing to do with his story, and both appearances end with some form of humiliation. Someone at the studio clearly had opinions about that character. Number 2. References beyond animation. Not all the hidden details in animated films point to other cartoons. Some of the most interesting Easter eggs reference real technology companies, film history, and specific moments from live-action cinema. The connection between Pixar and Apple runs through several films in subtle ways. Steve Jobs acquired the division that became Pixar in 1986, and that historical link has been acknowledged in different ways across the studio's work. In Cars, a vehicle bearing the Apple logo appears briefly in a scene. In Toy Story 3, references to Apple technology appear in objects used by characters. The cinematic references go further. Toy Story contains a visual pattern that deliberately echoes the carpet design from the Overlook Hotel in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, one of the most recognizable images in horror cinema, hidden inside a children's film. And a sequence involving dinosaurs recreates the famous Jurassic Park mirror shot, where a creature's approach is seen reflected in a vehicle's rearview mirror. For a child watching, it's just an exciting moment. For anyone who has seen Spielberg's film, it's an entirely different joke running simultaneously.
Number 1. The Boss Baby and its movie tributes. The Boss Baby might seem like an unlikely candidate for the most densely packed animated film when it comes to cinematic references, but it uses its premise, a world where babies and adults are locked in an absurd power struggle, to sneak in homages that span decades of film history. In one sequence, the protagonists infiltrate a villain's headquarters searching for a key document. When they finally retrieve it, the mechanism holding it in place begins to descend, triggering a series of obstacles that follows the same escalating logic as the famous booby-trapped temple sequences from Indiana Jones. The reference is specific enough that it only works if you know exactly which scenes it's recreating. In another scene, a nanny arrives floating down with the help of an umbrella, a visual pulled directly from Mary Poppins, presented with enough clarity that it can't be accidental. And then there's the moment most people recognize immediately. Tim, the older brother, has lotion applied to his face and reacts with a specific expression of shock. Arms raised, hands pressed against his cheeks, mouth open. The pose is an exact recreation of Kevin McAllister's aftershave scene from Home Alone. Frame for frame, the same image, rebuilt in animation. 3 separate films from 3 completely different eras of cinema, hidden inside a single animated movie that most people watched once and forgot about.
7 secrets, 7 details that were sitting in plain sight across films you've probably seen multiple times. A villain from one movie ending up on a wanted poster in another. A classroom number hidden in over 20 films. 3 characters from 3 different stories sharing the same street corner for 2 seconds. A horror movie carpet pattern inside a children's film. The most remarkable thing about all of these isn't how well they were hidden, it's how long they stayed hidden. These details were placed there deliberately by animators who knew that most people would never find them. For the few who do, it changes the way every frame looks from that point forward. Drop a like if at least one of these surprised you, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next, and comment below which one did you already know. We read every single comment.